I knew she was going to be great, and I knew that we needed a really great point guard to give us a shot, right? That we had some other pieces, but when you got her, that's when you started to really see that this kid was wired so differently and what she could do. I mean, she makes the extraordinary ordinary.
Caitlin Clark's arrival in the WNBA has made waves, not just because of her standout skills, but also her magnetic personality that keeps attracting new fans. The league is still figuring out how to handle her impact, but slowing down this rising star is proving to be a real challenge. Caitlin is the hot topic everywhere, and WNBA coaches can hardly escape questions about her during media interviews. Coaches try to stay neutral, avoiding any bold statements, but they're often drawn into discussing Caitlin's high-energy game. Their responses usually center on her impressive performance and specific matchups. But if you look closely, there's a lot more insight hidden in their words. These coaches are the ones actually crafting strategies to contain Caitlin Clark, and they feel the pressure if those plans don't work out, which often they don't. That's why you'll rarely hear disrespectful comments. They know exactly why she's setting records as a rookie. Still, opposing coaches aren't just fans on the sidelines. They're competitive, and some are a bit reluctant to shower her with praise. Remember, these coaches are motivators, and they know that anything they say about Caitlin might end up motivating their own players or stirring up rivalry in the locker room. So, they're careful with their words. The last thing they want is for their players to think they're favoring Caitlin, even if some admire her skills. The most interesting takes often come from former players turned coaches like Becky Hammon, a 6-time WNBA All-Star and record-holding assist leader. Hammon is now head coach of the Las Vegas Aces. Having played and coached at the highest levels, Hammon feels free to speak openly about Caitlin, even as her name stays in the headlines.
I think she's amazing. I watched every time I possibly could. And our league loves her. This has nothing to do. We're just doing our job. We're going to show up. Who is ever on the other team is on the other team. We don't really care. We're going to show up and do us. And so I think this narrative of like everybody hating on Caitlin Clark, and even the black and white thing, knock it off. It's not there.
The coach has made it clear she respects Caitlin Clark, but also stands by the WNBA players who gave the college scoring star a challenge when she entered the pro league. Competing hard is a core value in the WNBA and a more likely reason for the tough love Caitlin has experienced than any of the racial narratives some media figures and a few players have recently suggested. Becky Hammon, for one, firmly believes this, and she's probably right. Instead of turning Caitlin into a debate topic, it's time to just enjoy watching her play. In reality, most WNBA players and coaches would love to have Caitlin on their team. But since they don't, they act a little indifferent, like sour grapes. One of the most straightforward comments on this came from Minnesota Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve, back when Caitlin was still at Iowa. Reeve wasn't focused on landing Clark in the draft, but she did address the controversy around tanking to get top players with passion. Here's what she had to say about the idea of targeting Clark in the draft.
They asked me privately, are we going to tank for Caitlin Clark and like that? Like, it's just not how I would do things. If Glenn came to me and said, Cheryl, I want you to do that, I probably would step aside and say, let someone else do that. I don't believe in that. I think if you get there organically and that's what you deserve, great. I am never going to try to be in that situation. You know, Caitlin Clark might make you want to lose every game, but not him.
Many coaches share this view, but bringing up the team owner and Caitlin Clark by name felt a bit excessive. Losing games on purpose for a better draft pick is unsportsmanlike and often doesn't work out, so there was no need to get that specific. We can't say for sure if any lower-ranked teams intentionally lost games last season, but it's likely that some weren't too upset about it, given the talent in the draft class. Since then, Cheryl Reeve has shifted her approach when talking about Caitlin, and her latest comments are actually quite impressive.
I believe growing her physical strength and her ability to exist in spaces against bigger, stronger athletes than what she faced in college. So obviously future Hall of Famer, and has had a great impact on the game.
Young players often need time to adjust and make an impact at the pro level, so it wasn't surprising that the Indiana Fever had a bit of a shaky start as Caitlin Clark settled in. The team has clearly evolved, though. Stephanie White, a former Fever player and now head coach of the Connecticut Sun, as well as reigning Coach of the Year, has shared some valuable insights into the progress Indiana has made over Clark's first season.
I think anytime you're a young team that's really growing into yourself, the understanding of one another, the timing, the pace, the connectedness just wasn't quite there early. It's there now. Everybody on the floor understands how, when, and where Caitlin Clark can get them the ball, and so they get there.
This might be the most level-headed take on Caitlin Clark's rookie season we've heard. It's true, the Indiana Fever had a rough start, and their record reflected that. But as they gained momentum, Caitlin was key, though she wasn't alone, with several teammates stepping up. Stephanie White, now at the Connecticut Sun, acknowledged this progress, but wisely urged everyone to be patient, letting this young team find its footing before making any big judgments. This perspective is shared by other top WNBA coaches who have the expertise and insight into women's basketball. Another strong voice on Clark's development has been Sandy Brondello, head coach of the New York Liberty. When asked about Caitlin, Brondello gave a thoughtful response based on her own observations from New York's matchups against the Fever, focusing directly on what she saw on the court.
She's a great young talent, and you have to remember that she's a young talent. She's coming into the WNBA for the first time. She's going to be a really good player. I know that much. But it's hard coming in as the number one. When's the last time a number one pick has come in and dominated from the start? And I think she's had some really good moments. For sure, she had 20 in the first game, and you were able to keep her to single digits in that last game. But very capable. Can't leave her open. So I think the whole game plan's around her, and she's going to be a player that will continue to grow because I think she's a quick learner. She's got high basketball IQ. So she's going to be
The intense pressure on Caitlin Clark as a college star, media sensation, and top draft pick isn't talked about nearly enough. Given all this, her smooth transition to the WNBA is even more impressive, especially considering that coaches like Sandy Brondello are using every defensive strategy possible to contain her. It's becoming clear that Clark is on track to develop into a more complete player, though her ultimate potential remains unknown. Right now, she's getting no special treatment on the court or from the media. Los Angeles Sparks coach C.T. Miller is one of those who still believes Clark can be slowed down. After his team split a pair of games against the Fever, Miller praised Clark's talent, but quickly added credit to his own defensive approach. Here's his take, showing both respect and a bit of competitive edge.
I mean, she's so talented and she draws so much attention. And then, what's so underrated about her is her passing. Tonight, she was able to get to the foul line a lot, which supplemented her offense. But, I thought we did a pretty good job both games.
Coach Miller doesn't seem too fazed by Caitlin Clark's game. Either he has a solid poker face, or if he genuinely believes Clark's high scoring against the Sparks was mostly due to free throws. Despite her 30-point performance in one game and nearly achieving a triple-double in the other, Miller views it as a strong defensive effort by his team. He's not alone in emphasizing defense over Clark's standout skills. This is a recurring theme among coaches in post-game interviews, no matter the score. Perhaps the most determined to focus on defense was Eric Thibault, the Washington Mystics head coach and top basketball strategist. Thibault went as far as to commend each individual defender who guarded Clark, saying fiercely loyal to his team's efforts.
We did a pretty good job one-on-one. They started running her off more screens, and that's a little tougher. Didi's big, trying to navigate all those screens. I thought we did a pretty good job one-on-one. Ariel took a turn on her down the stretch too, trying to keep Ariel out of foul trouble a little bit early in the game. Hey, she makes a tough shot. We forced her into 8 turnovers, but she made some tough-ass shots. So credit to Kate.
Coach Eric Thibault deserves credit for standing by his players, but he might be downplaying Caitlin Clark's impact. Anyone can see that Clark brings more than just sharp shooting and running off screens. She's the heart of her team's offense and one of the WNBA's top talents. Whether she's controlling the point or moving without the ball, she's consistently a threat. Yes, she has turnovers, but cherry-picking stats to downplay her gain overlooks her vast influence on the court. What's often missed in discussions is the huge impact Clark has had on women's basketball as a whole. The spike in game attendance and sponsorships across the league is clearly tied to her popularity. While most coaches avoid mentioning it, Clark's college rival, Dawn Staley, showed a refreshing perspective. After South Carolina beat Clark's Iowa team in the 2024 NCAA tournament final, Staley acknowledged just how much Clark is changing the game.
And I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport. And it just is not going to stop here on the collegiate tour. But when she is the #1 pick in the WNBA draft, she's gonna lift that league up as well. So
that's truly classy. Dawn Staley could have easily taken the spotlight and celebrated her team's big win, but she instead took a moment to acknowledge Caitlin Clark's impact. Staley spoke candidly about Clark's future in the WNBA, and her words have proved almost prophetic. In a highly emotional moment, she recognized what every basketball professional knows well. Clark is transforming the game, and coaches could stand to show a little more excitement for the buzz she's bringing just by stepping on the court. Interestingly, one of the most enthusiastic endorsements of Clark came from Phoenix Mercury coach Nate Tiddits, despite their team's intense matchups. Tiddits didn't hold back, diving into why Clark is already such a nightmare for defenses and boldly predicting that, as she gains more experience, defensive tactics will only become less effective against her. His high praise reflects just how much of an impact Clark is making.
What makes it effective is Clark's shooting ability and passing ability. She puts a lot of pressure on you with, both areas. She can come off and shoot it, but then she's a great passer. And the more she's in the league, she's even going to become a better passer because she's going to see everything. Coaches, teams are throwing everything at her. And, that's what great players see. The more reps they get at it, they're going to continue to improve. And she has that ability to improve.
The reality is, Caitlin Clark has already established herself as a complete offensive player. You can't just back off her, or she'll score easily. If you send help defense, she'll quickly find open teammates for shots. Trying to confuse her with different defensive strategies may work for a little while, but Clark will only get better at spotting those traps and staying ahead of her opponents. The lead is starting to recognize that she's going to be a significant force for years to come, even if some coaches struggle to say it out loud. Some coaches appear frustrated with the attention Clark is getting and want to shift the focus back to the game. While that's understandable, it's not fair to downplay her achievements, especially from coaches whose teams have often played aggressively against her. For instance, Chicago Sky coach Teresa Weatherspoon acknowledges that discussions about non-basketball issues are off base, despite her team's physical approach to Clark.
There's been a lot of talk, to talk about women's basketball is pretty big. It's a big thing, it's huge. But what you want it to be spoken about is the game, the skill, the talent, versatility, how hard we play, what they have to do to be able to step between those four lines all the time, and to talk about competitors. They're out there to compete to go win.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with competing fiercely and showcasing talent and versatility. However, it's hard to ignore the harsh fouls and the negative attitudes directed at Caitlin Clark. Coach Teresa Weatherspoon knows how important Clark's rise to stardom is for the game, but she often shifts the discussion back to the technical aspects of basketball instead of acknowledging the overall progress the game is making due to Caitlin's play. Even when focusing strictly on the sport, Caitlin would still be in the spotlight, regardless of what the Chicago Sky, their coach, or their rookie Angel Reese think. On the other hand, some coaches are taking a different route and recognizing Caitlin's contributions. For instance, the Seattle Storm have also played her physically, but their coach, Noel Quinn, openly praises her talents. She provides a glowing assessment of Clark's game, highlighting all the qualities that make her an exceptional player.
She's a good player. Shot making ability, deep. We don't talk enough about her passing. Her being 6 feet, she can see a lot, make a lot of reads, and obviously teams are being aggressive on her, and she's still, finding ways to, score, get to the rim, and assist her teammates. She's confident, she's poised, she's different, she's a beast. We talk about her being a generational talent. She has a lot of talent, and she's going to continue to keep getting better.
Noel Quinn's recognition of Caitlin Clark as a generational talent reflects the growing acknowledgement of her impact on the game. As Clark continues to shine and deliver impressive performances, it's likely that more coaches will feel the pressure to speak up and celebrate her achievements. Her ability to modernize women's basketball and draw parallels with the NBA is significant. It shows just how transformative her presence on the court is. As for Christy Sides, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, her enthusiasm for having Clark on the team is palpable. Sides is embracing Clark's potential and the energy she brings, demonstrating a supportive relationship that is crucial for a young player's development. Her willingness to express admiration for Clark underscores the excitement surrounding her and the positive trajectory of her career in the WNBA. What Sides has to say clearly reflects her appreciation and confidence in Clark's abilities and future.